Welcome to Chapter 10 of The Divide. Please like and subscribe. Julia cut through the water like she was born from it. Not just swimming, she was flying submerged. Every time she pushed off, it felt like the water cheered her on. Her leg, where the titanium prosthetic met her skin, no longer slowed her down. It was now like her own silent engine. The time was 3:30, and once school had finished, Julia couldn't wait to do the one thing she wanted to do since arriving at Eminence: swim. Back when she first strapped on her new leg, swimming terrified her. From time to time, Julia thought of those awful days where every kick meant she might sink and not swim. The memories of choking in the water and needing to grab the safety rope from the hospital's trainer still haunted her. And why from a trainer? Why not her father, who was an expert diver? Because while she was in recovery, he was being sentenced to jail for not being there for her and Maddie. Splashing her head out of the water, Julia grabbed onto the side of the pool. Then, looking up at the sun peeking through the clouds, she smiled, thinking about how far she had come. It's over now, she told herself in the pool. It's a new day. "Hey!" came a shout at Julia from Maddie, who was lying on a pool chair nearby with a heavy dose of sun cream on his nose. "Your splashing almost got me wet, Jules. I'm here for the sunbathing, not swimming." This, of course, led to Julia unloading a barrage of splashes on Maddie, making him soaking wet. "Sunbathe in that, you little princess," Julia said, whacking the water over and over again onto Maddie. "Oh, it is so on," he replied as he ran to another part of the pool to start kicking water back at his sister. Before the water fight ensued, Matthew wasn't just sunbathing. He was in deep thought about the faint screaming he had heard earlier in the day. He didn't share that with Julia just yet, however. After all, was it really screaming? If not, then he would ruin his sister's happy mood for no reason. Overall, they were both having a good day. A good and wet day. That was until, of course, Claris and her friends came to the pool. Julia and Maddie's laughter dwindled as they watched Claris strutting towards them. Her presence was like the smell of a rank fart right before you take your last bite of ice cream. Utterly disgusting. Behind her, Yolanda followed with a calculating smirk. Yet Julia noticed there was something different about her from earlier in the day. As their eyes met, a small piece of mischief was gone and replaced with softness and possibly even regret. Flanking them were two girls also in Julia's class, yet Julia had not yet spoken to either one of them. The first girl was Bree. She was an angry diesel chugging Mack truck of a girl. Her brown hair was tied back tightly, and her eyes scanned the scene as if she was ready to fight. "She looks pissy," whispered Maddie while him and Julia observed her. Next to Bree was Yuki. Julia could see that her posture was less confident than the rest. Her eyes kept darting around as if she was seeking approval. Her swimwear was a mix of sporty and chic, but her body language screamed of a desire to fit in and to not stand out in any way possible. And a few other girls slowly joined Claris and her friends, all in swimsuits ready to swim. "It's time for pool volleyball," Claris announced to the world with eyes of eviction staring at Julia and Matthew. "I think it's time we should go, Maddie," spoke up Julia. She then raised herself out of the pool and took the towel that Maddie was handing to her. As Claris watched Julia stand in her swimsuit and her prosthetic leg fully exposed, An evil glimmer grew in her eye. She leaned over to Yuki and was about to whisper what would surely be an insult when Julia interrupted. "You guys got room for one more?" Julia knew Claris was going to insult her as only a coward would. So she stood proudly with her leg fully visible to all, not backing down or shying away from anyone. "I'm not that good," Julia continued, "but I would love to give it a try." Claris gave a long, before a definite no. "There are too many already, dearie." Julia smiled politely and replied, "No problem. You guys have a great game." She then turned to Maddie and was going to tell him that they were going to leave when, unexpectedly, Yolanda stepped forward and spoke. "My team actually needs one more," she said with her usual monotone voice. "You can join if you want." An immediate sound of disgust came from Claris. Surprisingly, however, Yolanda paid it no mind. "So, you in?" she asked Julia. "Yeah, if you have room." "Cool. Just one thing," Yolanda said as she walked closer to Julia. "Your leg, it won't, rust up and put some disease in the water or anything like that, will it? I'm trying not to die young, you know." Julia immediately laughed as she understood Yolanda wasn't being bully mean, but she was friendly joking. Maddie, he even gave out a boisterous ha-ha. After all, one good wit respects another. "No," Julia replied. "No fast-spreading ones anyway. Just those pesky, sneaky cancer ones that you don't know you have until you die like 30 or 40 years later." "All right," replied Yolanda with a slight smile. "I guess that's enough time for a cure to come around. Okay, let's play." After setting up the net, the game was on. Julia was with Yolanda and two other girls, while Claris was with Bree, Yuki, and another girl. Julia was in front of the net next to Yolanda, across from Bree and Claris. Claris was obviously upset at Yolanda for allowing Julia to play. So as they played, every time she hit the ball, it was as if she was looking through a sniper scope, hunting Yolanda's face before she would fire. "Wow, take it easy," Yolanda shouted at the 5th time her face almost got taken off. "What are you trying to do? Make my face look like yours and be twins?" This, of course, angered Claris that much more, causing a barrage of headshots her way. Yolanda, however, could hold her own. Shielding herself from each vicious hit, she would often pop the ball up perfectly for Julia to spike it down. It was an exciting game between two very different styles. For Julia's team, she was the main scorer, smashing the ball down in empty spaces in between opponents. And on the other side, Claris and Bree would spike the ball down on opponents, causing Julia and her team to often protect their heads more than play the ball. The game was tight, going back and forth. Maddie, of course, was the ultimate cheerleader for his sister, and also, for some strange reason, Yolanda. While cheering them on, he would find himself drifting his eyes back to Yolanda and thinking, "Oh man, that twin joke was amazing," he said to himself. "Perfectly humiliating with an Italian touch of creativity. Yolanda, she's mean, funny, beautiful, and emotionless. She's like a girl me, and I love me, which means that what? Oh no." He, over time, stopped so much cheering and he started to creepily stare at Yolanda. In between plays, Yolanda eventually noticed Maddie gawking at her. And finally she asked Jules, "Hey, is your brother all right? You know, in the head? I don't think he's blinked in like the last 5 minutes." Julia laughed as she splashed water towards Maddie to wake him up. "Watch the game, Maddie," she joked, realizing he was starting to crush hard on Yolanda. Maddie quickly snapped out of it and replied, I was. I'm doing that. I even know the score. It's 10-10. Next point wins. I think. Right? Maybe? What? Who? Fortunately, Maddie was right, and he was able to escape the awkwardness of the situation. As the Maddie mini-drama died down, Julia's energy quickly shifted back to the seriousness of a game-winning play. Julia, for the most part, is lighthearted. Yet, in a competition, something in her changes, and she goes from a sheep to a wolf. By now, a small audience had joined in around the pool to watch the match, and the crowd was buzzing. It was the last play. Julia was focused. Her eyes narrowed at Claris across the net, ready for the serve from Claris' teammate to come. Claris smirked. Bring it, Julia, and don't go crying bullying when it's done either. Oh, I'll bring it, double bagger, she said. You just get ready. It was Bree's turn to serve. She tossed the ball up, muttering, "Time for my secret weapon." She then spanked the ball with such force, it looked like it was screaming through the air. "Here it comes," Julia yelled, diving for the ball. She barely caught it with her fingertips, sending it spinning back towards her own side. Yolanda got to it just before it landed in the water, and she bumped it up high in the sky, back towards the other team's direction. Then Claris, with a dramatic leap that would make any anime character proud, spiked the ball down with a huge shout. The ball zoomed down like a meteor towards Yolanda's face. Julia figured she would try a headshot, and she grinned as she guessed right. "Not this time," Julia said as she leaped, her fist cocked back, and then she fired at the ball. The ball scorched back with a loud bang. For the next minute, the volleyball ping-ponged back and forth, each player showcasing their own unique flair. Splashes, shouts, and dramatic poses pumped up the crowd even louder as everything became more intense. Finally, the ball was slightly mishit by Yuki on Claris's team, and it floated perfectly over the net to Julia. Julia saw her chance. "Time to end it," she said. Julia jumped, her hand ready to smash the ball into the bottom of the pool and win the match. But then she paused midair, observing Claris's angry face looking back towards Yuki, her mouth a fire hydrant ready to explode insults and blame. "We win, that Yuki girl loses," Julia thought. "And I know Claris will make her life a living nightmare if that happens." The ball wobbled and teetered towards Julia, and then plop. She let the ball drop right beside her. A whistle blew, and the crowd went wild. Claris's team had won. Everyone on Claris's team were ecstatic. However, Claris was surprisingly not. Just before Julia let the ball drop by her side, Claris had a split-second moment where she saw Julia had the win. She saw Julia had a spike. She had a TKO victory, and it would have been a shot right at Claris herself. Why did she not take it, Claris thought. Why didn't she destroy me for the win? Julia was even laughing at herself after the loss as she told her team, sorry guys, I lost the ball in the sun. It's my bad. Claris couldn't believe it. She couldn't believe the absolute character of Julia. And for whatever reason, this made Claris hate her even more.